one person that I consider a hero in this area is Viktor Frankl. You know, he's a emeritus professor of this university. He wrote his book, Man in Search of Meaning, describing his experiences in Auschwitz. And you know, that's as terrible an environment as anybody could imagine. And what he discovered there was that the last dignity, the ultimate, the most profound dignity of a human being was impossible to strip away. And that was the dignity of choosing how to respond to circumstances. So this is a notion that goes way beyond the effectiveness of how one works. This has to do with the moral integrity with which one lives his or her life. Because whatever happens, whatever circumstances we have to face, there's always the question, how are you going to respond? How am I going to choose my behavior to face this situation? And when I forget that I have a choice, I'm imprisoned. But I'm not imprisoned by external forces. I'm imprisoned by my own story, by the way I see the world, by the fact that I point my flashlight to the wall instead of pointing my flashlight to the door. And if I point my flashlight to this wall, I'm never going to see any door. And I'll say, I'm stuck. There's no way out of this room. And it's true that there's no way out through that wall. But I just have to look around and I'll start seeing other options. So that's the shift from taking the blue pill or the red pill. And it's a realization that if I don't see myself as part of the problem, if I don't see myself included in the situation, then I cannot be a part of the solution. That's the deal. Okay? You either take the devil's deal or you take the human deal. And the human deal is, I'm an agent. I can do something. I can act. I can make a choice. There's no guarantee that my choice will succeed, but there are some guarantees, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'd like you to experience what it's like to take the other pill, the anti-drug. And that is the story of the player. Now, the most important thing of this exercise is I want you to focus on the same event. So don't talk about something else. It's the same event. But now instead of trying to demonstrate to the other person that you were completely powerless, that there was nothing you could have done, that you are blameless and innocent, try to demonstrate you had a part of this. There's something you could have done. So now the first question is, how did you choose to respond to the situation? Okay, whatever happened, what did you do? And just pay attention, reflect. Most people never think that, oh yeah, I did something too. They just say, well, they did this to me and the other time, yeah, he yelled at me and that. The best example of this, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's my favorite TV show. It's called The Dog Whisperer. I don't know if they show it here in Guatemala. El Encantador de Perros, The Dog Whisperer. Bueno, this guy is just a magician of working with dogs. So all the episodes are the same. He's a psychologist. He's a dog psychologist. He doesn't train the dogs. He communicates with the dogs in their own language. So he's called by some person, the owners of the dog, which are desperate because the dog is completely crazy. And, you know, the dog does this and that. So he goes and he sits with the owner and says, tell me about the dog. I say, well, you know, the dog, he barks all night and then he gets aggressive. And when we have people, for example, the other day, a friend of mine came and the dog beat her. Oh, yes. Oh, that's terrible. Yes. And then comes the key question. And the key question is this one. And what did you do when the dog beat your friend? You say, what? No, but the dog did. Yeah, I know. I understand the dog beat. But what did you do after the dog beat your friend? And you can see that they are now getting all worried about maybe I did something. And I said, well, I was trying to calm the dog. So I picked up the dog and I started soothing the dog and caressing. Ah, so after the dog beat your friend, you rewarded the dog with affection. Well, no, but that was not my intention. So I don't know what your intention was, but I'm telling you what the dog understands. The dog says, I'm the boss here. I bite anybody who comes, and my owner tells me that was the right thing to do by giving me affection. And I tell you, always is the case that the problem is not the dog. Always, the problem is the owner. Because the dog is a dog. So he says, I can't work with the dog. I understand the dog, but I work with the owner. He says, I don't train dogs. I understand dogs. I train owners. So the program is him working with the owner to teach the owner how to work with the dog. Okay? So this is it's an incredibly powerful question that I use all the time when I work with business people. Because the business people will say, well, no, and this happened, and that. And I ask the same question that Cesar Millán asked. So what did you do when she said she was not going to give you the report? What do you mean, what did I do? Yes, what did you do? Well, she told me she wasn't going to give me the report. I heard that, but what did you do? Well, I stormed out of the room. Oh, how did that work? Well, not very well. Could you have done something different? Well, what do you mean? You want me to stay? I don't know what I want you to do, but could you have something different? Could you have done something else? Well, yes. Well, can you imagine doing something more effective? Well, yes, I could have asked her why not. Okay, well, no, there you go. You could have done some, I don't know if that would have worked, but you could have done something better. So what I'd like you to do is take the same situation, but now without any attempt to be blameless, say, could I have done something better? I mean, just think. And maybe you'll come up with something or not, but then there's a question, even if at the time you couldn't have done something, instead of complaining now, is there something you can do now to improve the situation? Even if it's just being at peace with it and making peace with what happened. Can you think of something now? And how do you feel about this change? Telling the story first as a victim and then telling the story with a little more intensity as a player. So I'll give you 5 minutes again, tell the same event but from the other perspective. Go ahead. Take a minute to feel the difference in the mood of the story of the victim and the story of the player. And in the short term, the story of the player is not as fun. But in the long term, it makes a huge difference. Because it's what allows you to accept the facts as they are, but then have some resoluteness, some commitment to act in the face of these facts. So it's the ultimate freedom. It's not the freedom from, which is the way most people understand freedom. I want to be free from constraints. That freedom is unattainable in this life. The true freedom that's possible for a human being is the freedom to respond to whatever constraints are there, to make choices. And that's the essence of the player story. This is very related to existentialism. So what makes you exist as a human being instead of just existing as a thing? And that's the difference between being a victim and being a player.